person tonight is Mary Ellen Kirklos. Appreciate Mary Ellen running the show tonight. And we have a very important program coming up. I assume that people have seen, somewhat familiar with what's been going on in the West Bank just about every day now. A typical report is from yesterday, for instance. Security footage from the Christian Palestinian town of Taibeh shows Israel settlers slashing car tires and smashing shop windows late Wednesday night, and on and on and on. Several government ministers in the Israeli government have made it very clear that they will never allow a Palestinian state. And as Israeli Finance Minister Smotrich has said, quote, Israel is killing the idea of a Palestinian state day by day, hour by hour. And that is the goal. In this very dangerous situation and very sad situation, and very complicated situation, we're very fortunate to have with us this evening Benjamin Davidovitch, who is an American Israeli resident of Amherst, Massachusetts, who is also a physics professor at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. In the summer of 2025, he joined the Jordan Valley Activists, JVA. These are Israeli volunteers who stay 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with Palestinian communities at risk and provide them with protective presence against their harassment and displacement by violent settler groups. The JVA, this protective presence, is providing support by standing between Palestinian shepherds and the settlers who target them. They document law violations and other abuses committed by the settlers and fundraise to help shepherds access water when sources are restricted by the Israeli army. And maybe Benny will talk a little bit about those fundraising efforts and how those funds are used and are needed. So this is someone who's been living in the West Bank with Palestinian families, and so we're very fortunate to have Benny with us today to kind of share this firsthand experience. Welcome, Benny.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thanks for the invitation. I'm really moved to be here with you and to tell you a bit about what I saw in the couple of weeks that I spent in the West Bank last summer. Thank you, Marilyn, also for your help here. So without further ado, I'll share with you my screen. And yeah, so, okay. So yeah, this is what I'm going to tell you about. I'm going to tell you about the activity, what we call protective presence, and my particular experience in the northern Jordan Valley in the end of July and beginning of August of the last summer. And so I want to say that the experiences that I'm going to tell you about are in a very small part of the West Bank of the northern. I will show you precisely where, but I believe that this will give you a slice of the reality in the West Bank, even though it's as I experienced in my own trip. Now, it's very important for me to say that while I start with a brief background, and it, of course, has my own biases to some extent, and my whole activity was affected by my own privileges and opinions and etc. The reason I chose to do this. My purpose here is really to describe specific events and not to focus on any historical political context. Okay, I believe that no matter what your political opinions, no matter what your moral opinions are, you should know what is going on. And I would really like to share with you it from a very personal perspective. So here is the brief background. I think that you all know where is Gaza, which is on this map, which we know about the disaster, the genocide that has been going on there for the last 2 years. Here is also the West Bank, which is the other part. Both of them are called the occupied territories, occupied by Israel during the 1967 war. Here is a bit larger map of the West Bank, and it shows you several colors of the West Bank, the red and the orange, and the Oslo Agreement of the Oslo Agreement of the sorry, what did I do? Did I? Oh, sorry. The Oslo Agreement, which were made in the early 90s and were supposed to be some temporal arrangement between Israel and the Palestinians, divided the West Bank into 3 areas that are called, unsurprisingly, A, B, and C. Areas A and B, which are marked in this map in red, are under jurisdiction, full or partial jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority. They include Palestinian cities like Nablus, Jenin, Hebron, Ramallah, towns, and large villages. Area C, which is where I stayed and where most of the harassments that you hear about by settler groups take place, is under full Israeli control, military and civil. Even though the Palestinians who live there are not Israeli citizens, but the area is still under full Israeli control, both civil and military. It includes Israeli settlements and open areas, which are sparsely populated by small villages and shepherd community. It occupies Area C around 60% of the West Bank. There is a large majority of Israelis in this area. They live in settlements, and much smaller communities of shepherd and other agricultural-based Palestinian communities. In recent years, and specifically since October 7, there has been a dramatic push in attempts to displace shepherd communities and even whole villages from their own lands. Several groups of activists, and I took part in one of them, are trying to help Palestinian communities at risk to peacefully withstand these aggressions. The areas in which I stayed and the group, this Jordan Valley activist group that Paul mentioned, is active in, is in this part where you see the black rectangle. It's really the northern part of the Jordan Valley. There are several other groups like Rabbis for Justice, and I just now don't remember all the names, but they're active in other areas and all do more or less the same type of activity. Now here is a bit larger and enlarged zoom in area map of the area in which I stayed. On the left, you see the town to Bas. The town to Bas is already in Area A, is under Palestinian control, not to mention Israeli military invasions there, which are very frequent now, but that's not part of my story. The area in which I was includes several types of places that I try to put in this map. There are settlements, which are marked in blue triangles. There are outposts that are these squares, blue squares, that I'm going to mention in a few words what they are. There are Palestinian villages, which are these solid circles. You see few of them here. One of them is El Beida, another one is Bardala in the northmost part of the Jordan Valley. And there are many of these communities, shepherd communities. Almost all of them are based on some type of cattle, either sheep, some of them cows, some of them goats, but that's the kind of livelihood of these communities. Now, the settlements are typically of order, they've been there for many years now. Some of them are really the oldest settlements in the West Bank are here, 50-something years old, like this one, Mechola, Rotem, Maskiot, few other settlements. The outposts are new creatures. They have been there, started to make them erect them in the, some of them already 15 years old, some of them 20 years old, most of them are much, much newer. Now, the settlements and the outposts are illegal by international laws because this is an occupied territory, military occupied. You are not supposed to put cities it's not supposed to be used for civil use. The difference is that the settlements are legal by the Israeli law. The outposts are not legal even by the Israeli law. And typically they are just few, most of them consist of some teenagers, maybe one or two families with them, one or two grown-ups. And some of them will be more connected to the mother settlement. Like if you look at this one, this is the outpost that it's called Teni Yarok, is the one that is associated with most of the activities that I will talk about now in this presentation. Some of them are less connected to settlements, but these are variants that are not of much of our interest here. The Palestinian communities are typically 4, 5, sometimes 10 families each. That's the characteristic size. They have been there for many years. Some of them 90 years, like around 90 years. This is the communities with whom I stayed, which is in the Abu Mahsan families in a place called Farsia. This is their family compound. Some of them are a little bit newer. The story that I'm going to tell you about is particularly related to the family compound in Farsia of the Abu Mahsan families, and Sakut, which is the place where they, so most of their livelihood is based on sheep. They herd these sheep, and during the winter, the sheep are in the family compound because there is grazing areas there. During the summer, which was the time that I was there, the grazing areas are more closer to the river, and the men and also some of the boys typically spend all the time there, day and night with the sheep there. And I shared my time between these two places. Most of the stories that I'm going to tell you about are there. Now, here are a few pictures. So what you can see here are the family compounds in Farsia. That's what you see here. There are tents, maybe a little huts, maybe there will be some cement floor, but not much more than this. Electricity is by solar panels. Water they get by water tanks. That's how they live for many, many years. You can barely see, it's not very clear, but the settlement Rotem is on the other side, and the outpost, which is very close to Rotem. It's like 3 minutes drive at most from Farsia. You see an Israeli flag here. The Israeli flag, as you could imagine, was not put there by the Palestinian communities. It was put one of the many, many harassments by the activities by the settlers on the outpost. But they preferred not to take it off. They prefer to pick up their fights, and they don't want to get into trouble because of this flag and other flags that they can be found around, and many other type of harassments. So this is a picture of Farsia, and here are some pictures of the pens in Ein Sakut, where I was in the summer, which, as I mentioned, is few miles away from there. In Ein Sakut, there is essentially nothing. There is only people sleep there on the floor on mattresses during night. There are not even tents there. There are water tanks, 1 or 2, and there are the pens of the sheep during the grazing time, which is day in the early morning and then in the late afternoon. These are the places essentially empty, and except some equipment, and then they elaborate a little bit, elaborated this a little bit further along the presentation in a few slides. Here are some pictures of the Abu Mahsan family. This is here is Ahmad, who is like the unofficial leader of the group. There are 3 herds but he is one of them, but he's the person who typically he decides what to do when there are conflicts or any type of questions to be asked. Here is again Ahmed. Here is Yazen, another one. He's a cousin of Ahmed. This is his own herd during milking time. This is Zodi, Ahmed's brother. And yeah, these are what you see here is just some pictures from daily routine: grazing time, lunchtime in the shed in Sakut. And now, the rest of this presentation, and that's what I'm going to focus on, are going to be films. These films that I'm going to show here were taken by myself or by fellow volunteers in events in which I was present at the place or nearby. Such events that you're going to see, and give you a sample of them, they were frequent. They represent a pattern of continuous harassment. I did not notice any aggression of the Palestinian shepherds that preceded this event. Maybe it's obvious, but I felt I should say this nevertheless. So I'll start with the first movie. You will not be able to see much, but I decided to give it anyhow because this was my first encounter with this kind of harassment. So on my first night with the shepherds of Abu Mahsen family in En Sakut, where the pens are, and the men and the boys, this was on Saturday night, in the end of July, we suddenly woke up at the middle of the night. We were sleeping on the ground, as I mentioned, and that's more or less what we saw. So what you can see, you cannot see much, but I'll still explain what you see. There is an ATV. These are the lights that you see. They are the headlights of an ATV with a couple of settlers you are going to see soon. And they just... So what they do is they circle around the pen, frightening the sheep. In the middle of the night, everybody woke up. And, there is no settler property there. There are no settlers living there. They just do this as if it's their own. I'll wait a few more seconds so that you see the people in the car, in the vehicle, in the ATV. I think it will be... So these are, you could get a glimpse of them, and they're moving. You are going to see many of these more, don't worry. But this is the pattern, okay? This was the beginning of what I saw. It was the first example of this, and then things like this happen day after day. Here is another example of an event of such type. I call them incursions. So this was in the family compound in Farsia, okay? So this is not now where the sheep are. It's just a family compound, only women and the kids there, and some elderly people, and some of the volunteers that stay there. And this is what you can see. So now you see the ATV goes through the compound. This is the compound, like the main street. Imagine it's your front yard or backyard. Somebody drives through it. You see one of the volunteers running after the ATV and filming. Here are the solar panels. Now, this was actually what you see at the very end of this movie was the Palestinian kids, the kids of the families are, well, they see the action, they would run also after the ATV. And in events like this, I got very scared that one of the kids will throw a stone or even tiny one, and then it becomes a totally different type of event, as you could imagine. This is another example of harassment. So on the second day or third day that I was there, the outpost people, along with a group of teenagers, started surrounding the family compound in Farsia with a fence. Okay, so I just want to emphasize, this is not a fence that they made around their own outpost. It's a fence around the Palestinian family compound in Farsia. Now, in addition, what's the reason for this? In addition to harassment, we conjectured at the time that there seems to be another tactic to block access of herds to the grazing areas. So in the summers, there were not, as I mentioned, the sheep are not there, but in the winter, which is already now, the sheep are back. And so this was the working day that a group of people came and made this fence. So it was a whole day. We called the military, we called the police. Nobody came. It was like, it's not their interest. I should say that, of course, that this fence is illegal, but again, the Palestinians decided not to try to take it down because, again, they prefer to pick up their fights. And the volunteers will not do things that are not authorized or requested by the local Palestinians. So this is now actually slide that I added today because it was not clear about this fence here, but now you see, this is really a movie that was taken today and I got it through the WhatsApp group. So I would like to show it to you. That's what happened really as we speak this morning. And this apparently was the reason for this fence. So it was supposed indeed to block the herds, the Palestinian herds from going through from going to the grazing area. And you see now, so this guy in the middle is the outpost guy, the leader of the outpost. And these are the Palestinian sheep, the sheep of the Palestinian shepherds. You see that they did not want them to go through the fence that they erected, but the Palestinian would do it anyway because they need to take the sheep to grazing. And here you see a bit of a clash.
גלעד בא להרביץ, למה אתה בא להרביץ? כולכם קחו את הכבשים תעלו פה על השדה, ברור? הם יעלו לאן שהם רוצים. זה אדמה שלך. לך מפה. הכבשים לא עברו את השער הזה, ברור לכם? זה לא נכון. ברור? ברור? לא. ברור? לא. הם לא עולות פה יותר. אתה לא עולה יותר. יש לך צו הרחקה פה. עוד מתנחלים חמושים עם רובים מגיעים, יש כבר 4 טנדרים ותגבורת נוספת, וכולם ביציאה למרעה מעל פרסיה, קרוב מאוד לפרסיה. עוד מתנחל מצטרף, עוד אחד מצטרף דרך פרסיה, דרך המעל של פרסיה.
Okay, so here is going back to the summer. So in order to get from the sheep pens in Sekut, in Sekut, to the grazing fields, it is necessary to cross a highway. So Route 90, not Route 90 of Massachusetts, but Route 90 that goes along the Jordan Valley, the Jordan River. The shepherds use an underpass to safely crossing because, of course, it's very dangerous. I should say that this Route 90 is not like I-90 of Massachusetts, but it's still a busy road that it's very dangerous very complicated to cross the ships on top of the road. So there is this underpass that you can see here. And there was, at some point during the summer, they started to be struggle on the underpass, whether the settlers will be able to do it, to go through it or not, because the settlers from the outpost started to bring their own herd, and they used it to block access of the Palestinian to the underpass. So that's what you can see here. This is Route 90, this is the underpass, this is the outpost ship. They try to bring it early enough in the morning so that to put it there so that the Palestinian ship, which are here, could not get close to the underpass. I should, for those of you, and I was not also expert in this, but it turns out that if two herds are very close to each other, it's a big problem, because then ships start to mix, and there are threats, there are blames of theft, and etc., and the Palestinian would not dare to get their ship close to the outpost ship. So that's the tactics there, and that's what we tried to do at some point. We tried to. This is one of the volunteers. I took this movie. This is the same person from the outpost that you see also before.
כל מה שאנחנו מנסים לעשות זה לדחוף את הכבשים, לא לדחוף את הכבשים, להזיז את הכבשים. אנחנו מנסים להזיז את הכבשים, שהמעבר יתפנה, שאחמד יוכל לעבור עם הכבשים שלו, זה הכל. זה מה שאנחנו מנסים לעשות. מי שמדבר על לא חוקי, עבריין מספר לנו על אי חוקיות. ספר עבריין. תמשיך צלם.
And on the background you hear called to the police. The police typically would not come, or if they come and they don't do much. So that's the story. Okay, move to the next one. I want to show you this another example of this harassment, and here the reason I decided to show this one. So first let me give you the background. So often during the morning hours, while the sheep were grazing away, one or two outpost people could be seen driving into the empty area in En Sakut, which was in the morning it was empty when the sheep are not there, examining the empty pans, the water tanks and equipment, and see if they can cause damage. And sometimes it's possible, sometimes not. But this is a rare event in which so it was not taken by a volunteer. This movie was taken by one of the Palestinian shepherds, very brave one. And I chose it so that you can see a little bit of the interaction that happens. You can glimpse of the interaction between the settler and the Palestinian shepherd in this movie, which I think is somewhat different. I don't know if you could see this, but there was different type of aggression that could be seen in this movie. And there was only Palestinians there. There were no volunteers around, no Israeli volunteers or other nationalities. And this was a physical damage that was caused in this event or a similar one. In this event, the Palestinian shepherd was there, so this guy did not have the chance to get damage, but that's what happens when this is in other cases. You see, we come back and they see the water tank is open. Somebody opened it and the water is gone.
هاي حرقتين المية.
Paul, how much do I have? 5 more minutes or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I think this is the last film I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to say a few more words. This is another example of what kind of daily events that I saw. So I called it endangering the sheep. So during grazing, especially when shepherds are moving the sheep among fields, and this movie was taken, I'll tell you in a moment, the background, an outpost ATV, which you can see here on the back, often would show up from nowhere and driving towards around the sheep. Now, this movie was taken just at the end of the morning grazing when the Palestinian shepherds were about to cross back Route 90 so that they can take back, they can return their herd for the day to the pens. Route 90 is here. You cannot see it because there is a little bit of a hill here. This is a kind of a service road. It ends up here. There is really nothing, and the outpost will show from nowhere. I'm taking this movie. I'm with my back. I'm facing the cars. The car in front of the ATV is one car of the volunteer, and you see that he's trying to. The sheep are behind me. You are going to see them later in the movie, and the ATV of the settlers just want to get close to the sheep, and that's the content of this movie. You see the volunteers car trying to block the ATV from going towards the sheep. Finally, it managed to go. It stops because I'm standing there.
יש את העדר פה, בבקשה לא להתקדם. לא להתקדם, אתם מפריעים. יש את העדר פה, בבקשה לא להתקדם. לא להתקדם, אתם מפריעים לעדר לעבור.
That's basically what we tell them. We ask them to wait until the sheep
אתם מפריעים לעדר לעבור. אתם מפריעים לעדר לעבור. אתם מפריעים לעדר לעבור, עומדת להיות פה פגיעה, תתקשר. מנחם, תתקשר למשטרה, הם עומדים לפגוע בנו. מנחם, תתקשר למשטרה, הם עומדים לפגוע בנו. אדוני, אל תיגע בי בבקשה. אנחנו לא ניתן לך לעבור עד שהכבשים יעברו.
He asked us to move. We tell him that we will not move until the sheep cross.
הוא מתקרב לאוטו שלך, הוא מנסה לעשות משהו מאחורה.
The other guy noticed that the volunteer's car is deserted, so he's walking around to see if something can be done there.
אל תתקרב, אל תדרוס אותי. אתה נוהג בצורה מסוכנת, כמעט דרסת אותי עכשיו. לא דרסת, לא פגעת בי, כמעט דרסת. כמעט פגעת. אתה נוהג בצורה מסוכנת. אנחנו עומדים רק כדי לשמור על הכבשים, שהכבשים של אחמד יוכלו לעבור. זה מה שאנחנו עושים כאן. תן, תעשו.
He went down, he went now through the field.
טוב, הם הצליחו לעקוף אותנו, הם ירדו מהכביש. גלעד והחבר שלו ירדו מהכביש, הם מפחידים את הכבשים מצד שמאל. הם מפחידים את הכבשים, הם דוחפים את הכבשים לכיוון הכביש בצורה אלימה. זה מה שאתם רואים כאן. יום שישי בצהריים, 10 בבוקר. זה מה שקורה, מנסים למנוע מהכבשים לחצות את הכביש. זה מה שאתם רואים כאן.
I'd like now to close with now more movies, but I would like to tell you about a couple more aspects, and that's it. I'll close in very soon. So access to water. There are numerous springs and freshwater ponds in the northern Jordan Valley. Actually, in recent years, these places have become touristic spots for local settlers and being advertised as such for the broader Israeli public. These places were known to the Palestinian residents there for, of course, for decades, but the local Palestinian residents are now generally not welcome in those public places. Shepherds and their families are eager to visit and cool off in the water, especially in days when temperature exceeds 100 Fahrenheit. And most days are like this, but they are able to do so only with the protective presence of volunteers. So here you see a picture of some of the shepherds and their kids, and here this is me with a couple of the other shepherds, and without us, they will not get there. And just because they feel hostility, and I don't know, I could not stop thinking of stories that I heard about the 40s and 50s and the Jim Crow area in this country when I faced this. So, there were no attacks, nobody was hurt there, but just the kind of hostility that I felt there was pretty awful. And this is another aspect of the access to water that I'm telling you now a little about another place that I stayed in addition to Farsia and El Khilwe and Sakud. This is called El Khilwe, the Ragma family. So it's again story about access to water. The El Khilwe community, which are for the Ragma brothers and their families, had a large herd of cows. A couple of years ago, their source of water, the El Khilwe spring, was fenced off by settlers. This is the spring that you can see here, the little pond, and this is the fence that was built. Again, now it's the fence that was built to close off, to fence off the water. And basically cut their livelihood because of this. So they were backed up by military forces and most cows were taken away. The only source of water for the remaining cows is the tiny nearby gully, which you see here. And that's what the cows have to live with now these days. And I'll close with this story. So this happened a couple of weeks after I left in the end of August. And this piece was written by Kadri the Ragma, with whom I stayed a couple of nights, this man, whom you see in the ruins of his place. When I was there was still this compound, it was standing, and this is the story. I'm Kadri the Ragma, I would like to read it, and we'll close with this. A simple man from the Ein el-Khilwe area in the northern Jordan Valley. I was born here on this land and grew up among its hills and pastures before the occupation and before the settlement Maskiot was established on my land. Since 2006, my life has become a continuous nightmare. Every day I wake up to the reality of daily terror from the settlers who have robbed me of my life and my livelihood. 70 cows, all my property, my source of livelihood, the bread of my children, the heartbeat of my home was forcibly confiscated. Although the Supreme Court, the Israeli Supreme Court, ruled that the confiscation was illegal and the Settlements Council has no authority to do so, not a single cow has been returned to me. I live only 10 meters from the Ein el-Khilwe spring, and yet I'm not allowed to drink from the water. My herd is not allowed to go to the spring either, as if I do not even deserve water, as if we do not deserve life. I cannot read the top. And they put it, they called the administration and the army against me, and they received a construction halt order 20 days ago. This was mentioned in the end of August. Even though I've been living in the tent, in a tin tent for years. I hired lawyer Tawfiq Jabarini, he's a Palestinian lawyer, who contracted the civil administration and informed me that there was a court order prohibiting demolition until September 3rd of 2025. I thought that justice might be on my side, if only for a moment. But 2 days ago, on August 21st, 2025, in the early morning hours, while we were sleeping in our modest tent, large forces of the army and the civil administration burst into the place without any warning. They forcibly evicted me, my wife, and my children from the tent. And then they began to destroy everything in front of our eyes. They destroyed the tents above our heads. They broke the water tanks we drank from. They even uprooted the trees, provided us with shade in this hell. They wouldn't let me take my ID card, not the phone. The settlers stood on the heels of destruction, dancing, clapping, taking pictures, as if celebrating our death. And it didn't end there. After the demolition, I tried to collect a few broken beams and a few stacks to set up a simple tent that would protect me and my children from the sun. But they came back, the same army, and destroyed what I had built. They left me exposed under the Jordan Valley sun in a heat that reached 113 Fahrenheit. Since that day, I've been sleeping on the ground, without a tent, without shade, without water, without food. Just scorching heat that burns the skin and injustice that breaks the heart. And yesterday, when the Red Crescent tried to provide me with a shelter tent, the army returned, arrested me, chained me up, and took the tent, as if I had committed a crime. A cry from under the ashes. Today, I am a tired, broken, crushed person. I turn to you, to everyone who has a drop of humanity left in their hearts. Do not leave me alone in the face of this cruel injustice. This was written by Kadri Daragma in El Khilwe, Northern Jordan Valley, August 23rd, 2025. So this was the last part of my presentation. So Paul mentioned that I should mention so there are several groups. I don't put all of them here, and donations are welcome to any of them. This particular group in which I took part and in which all these events and movies and pictures I took them. It's the Northern Jordan Valley, or the Jordan Valley Activist. And here you have the website. And of course, donations are very welcome. They go almost only for instance, to help people like Kadri, and in events like this, to help provide water to the Palestinians, to help just cover the bit of just driving expenses of settlers that spend 24/7 with the Palestinian communities. And that's it. So this is the end of my presentation.
Well, thank you so much, Benny. That is such an experience, And before I ask any questions, let's let first of all, Mary Ellen is going to put up a quick letter that you're all invited to sign. You want to explain what this is, Mary Ellen?
Yeah, hi everybody. So this is an urgent appeal to Congress, our members of Congress, to co-sponsor a new resolution, Res H76. I'm going to put this in the chat as well. It's a new resolution submitted by Rashida Tlaib that calls for ending the weapons to Israel and prosecuting those committing genocide against Palestinians. And here I will add this to the chat. So if you click on this link, you can pull up for yourselves on your page. You can fill the form out and it will immediately take you to a letter. There is a letter there that's already written, but we really do encourage you to personalize it or even start from scratch and tell your member of Congress that it's important for them to co-sponsor this.
Thanks, Mary Ellen. So basically, this is what the petition looks like. You fill in that information there. For those willing to fill this in, you could just go to the link that Mary Ellen put in the chat, click the link, open this form, fill in these fields. We'll give you a minute and a half to do that, and then we'll come back. So we just encourage as many of you as feel comfortable with sending this message to our representatives in Congress. That would be great if you would fill that in right now. In just a minute, we'll be coming back for the opportunity to ask Benny questions about his thoughts and his experiences. And the way we're going to do it is ask people to go to the React button on the bottom of your screen and click on the raised hand function. But for now, if you could just take another 30 or 40 seconds to fill in, those of you willing to fill in the form. And then when you say next, it'll bring up the letter for you, and you just click to send it. And it goes automatically to your representative. You don't have to address it yourself to anyone. We have a magic machine that sorts all this out and sends it to the right people. Hard to believe what technology can do these days. So the link is there again. We're going to be coming back to our program now, see if people have questions for Benny after watching that presentation. This is amazing. So if you're interested, and please raise your hand. Go to the React button, click on the raised hand function, and then as we see you coming on here, we will unmute you and let you ask your question. So, Benny, could you just tell, does the type of harassment that you're showing here and experiencing, does this how often does this happen?
So all the time, every day, few times a day, and this is in the communities in which I stayed. I think there is nearly no day without one such type of harassment. I really can't think of a single day in which there was no one encounter of some type, less violent, more violent. So it's a pressure. It's a pressure campaign.
Yeah. So how long were you
Here's
there?
a question.
Oh, go ahead. Let's go with
from Edward.
I'll come back to this then. Let's go with Edward Ryerson.
Hi. Yes, hi, thank you. I'm just curious how many volunteers there are. What are they from all nationalities? Are there Israelis that are volunteers? Are there just the makeup of them and how long they stay there?
So thanks for the question. So there are probably 5 or 6 groups that act in the West Bank, maybe even more, I'm not sure. I would say around 5 or 6. And each one of them typically is active in different area. And so I'll tell you about the groups that I participated in, and from this you can project on the rest. So some of these groups, I should say, are primarily of Israeli citizens. Some others are more international volunteers. The group in which I stayed is primarily Israeli volunteers. And the idea is that at each given time, as Paul mentioned, 24/7, there should be around 6 to 8 volunteers in this area. This area, it means typically 6 or 7 or 8 Palestinian communities of this scale. These volunteers come from all over the country, the Israel, and then they are Israeli citizens. They can get to this area. The total number of people who are active, who are members of this group is around, I would say, probably registered are 300 or 400 people. Those who are really active, namely they contribute typically 1 day a week or 1 day even per 2 weeks, something like 2 days a month, I would say are more on the order of 100, maybe even less, maybe 80 or 70 or 80. So yeah, this gives you the proportion. Ideally, if there were like 2,000 Israeli citizens who are willing to contribute to go there one to the West Bank and be active, do this kind of protective presence once a month or twice a month, I think this would make a huge difference. Right now, these are not the numbers, but
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Benny. Let's go to see if Doris Damien has a question.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Thank you, Benny, very much for this presentation. Very interesting. So I want to ask you because somebody also noticed here, these are young boys. They seem to be, you know, probably high school age, the harassers. So I want to ask about first about their families, what about their families' involvement, and also about the Israeli, you know, the army and the police that are supposedly supposed to keep peace in the area. What about them? We didn't see any of them.
So I'll try to address these two questions. The first one about the kids, it's true. Many of the kids, or maybe most of the outpost people, are underage, are teenagers. Many of them are high school dropouts that are just find their way to these places rather than, I don't know, causing or being wandering, being in the streets in their own places. They find their ways to the Wild West and do this kind of sort of ideology-based activities to displace and to harass Palestinian families. And I would say they are being targeted. So it became like known phenomenon that these places, if high school dropouts can typically from religious background or national religious background, find their way to this outpost. It became like a valued kind of contribution to the ideology, to the community. What about the parents? Some parents, as you could imagine, some parents are extremely upset about it and they try to do what they can, maybe not all what they can, because you can also, if your kid is involved in criminal activity at some point, maybe you would like to get the authorities involved or require the authorities get involved, and this is not happening typically. Some other families are pretty okay with this. Among the kids that you saw in the teenagers that you saw in these movies, I know about one kid whose family is quite unsatisfied with this, but they do not feel that they can stop him from doing this. Another kid, his family seems to be quite supportive. I should say also that in some movies that I preferred not to show because the kids were really young. So these kids that you saw were probably 17, 16 maybe, one of them. There are cases in which we saw kids driving ATV on the age of probably 12 or 11. It's remarkable. Now, the army is not involved, the military is, it is complex or not so complex, but it's clearly, these are kind of activities that if they happen here or in any country, which is lawful, that law has some meaning, and Israel is such a place, just like here, if the army and the police the authorities were sufficiently interested, not even sufficiently, if they just had the motivation or they just did their job, they would of course stop it. And it's not happening, right? I mean, or it's, for example, the examples that one of the movies that I showed in Fence, which a movie from today that I showed, you could see that the police are coming and eventually they arrest the Palestinians that are the victims there and not the attackers. And this is a pattern.
Wow.
I don't think I have better answer than this.
Paul, are you seeing questions in the chat?
I don't see, I'm looking, I just had them and now I've lost them. Is it safe for volunteers to go to the West Bank?
Excuse me?
Is it safe for volunteers to go to the West Bank? How do you get there? Do they harass people trying to get there, or what?
Okay, that's a good question. So normally Israelis can go anywhere in Area C, Israeli citizens. If you are a non-Israeli citizen, you can go also to Area A, but that's another story. Yes, so the answer is we can go. You can drive your car, or you take a bus, right, into Area C, and it's generally safe. But I would say, yeah. Rarely there are also attacks. There are some attacks on settlers by some military or armed Palestinian groups. This happens rarely, but there are attacks of this type, and you can there were one or two cases in which volunteers were also victims for such attacks. Rarely, but it happened over the years. Now, in major events, like what so earlier this month, there was the olive harvesting, which was a big thing that involved many Israeli volunteers and international people, foreigners came also to help Palestinian to harvest their olives. So in this case, there were like several buses that would come to one or two villages, big villages, to help. And in such cases, it happens that the army or the police would block them on the way. They would just not let them in. So this can happen.
So there are both Israeli citizens who do this and international volunteers.
There are international volunteers, yes.
Yeah. And have there been episodes where these people doing this protection work have been harmed?
Yeah. As I said, I think I told Paul before I started the presentation that the area in which I stayed and all the movies and pictures that you saw were taken is considered to be so far the least violent of all the places in the West Bank. But and in my time there, I did not see major physical damage or physical injuries. In the last event, in the time that you saw the car, that the ATV that was driving towards us, I was slightly hit by my leg, but this was not anything that I had to go to hospital for this. But in other places of the West Bank, injuries happen, and they happen once, twice a week, 3 times a week. This is about injuries of Israeli or international volunteers. There are deaths, right? I mean, there are killings. And during the time that I was there, somewhere else in the West Bank, but Palestinians got killed. Palestinian lives are cheaper than Israeli life. I'm saying it, of course, in a big, I don't know, irony or sadness, but that's why precisely this protective presence work, because the settlers are more concerned about harming Israeli citizens or international than to beat or to even shoot maybe Palestinian residents.
Right. Let me ask this question, and then I want to come back to that. Bob Mason asks, I participated with the Center for Jewish Nonviolence about 8 years ago. It was safer for diaspora Jews to come to serve, to provide a witness or shield Palestinians than it was for Israeli Jews. Is that still true?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. No. No, I don't think so.
So what I wanted to find, Abby has a question.
Right. Oh, let me try that, Abby.
Thanks, Mariana. Benny, shalom lecha, toda.
תודה לך.
Do you know Issa Amro, who lives near Hebron?
Issa Amro?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
But he's a well-known Palestinian activist. He's won a few awards. The settlers keep coming and invading his house. They've actually hurt him. He ended up in the hospital with a broken arm or something. And I mean, I'm so afraid for him. I'm afraid that they might, damage him entirely. But you don't know about this. They keep coming. They steal things from his yard. They invade his house. They hit him. I just wonder, but apparently you're not familiar with him.
I'm not familiar with him. I did not go to this area. As I said, I was only in the northern Jordan Valley. I did not go to Hebron. But yeah, I mean, this is reality. This is what you just said. It's happening in other places. There are often particular families, particular individuals who are being harassed on a daily basis.
It's just totally infuriating. I know you know that, but
yeah,
Paul, it's just so infuriating.
Yeah, and it's getting worse.
And it's really hard to imagine, as I sit here in my place in Amherst and I'm talking about it and describing it, I'm smiling, but it's like, it's unbelievable, right? I mean, the fact that in a lawful country, and lawful country in the sense that there are authorities that are functioning, they are certainly functioning. They have the ability to function properly. And what you said, like daily harassment of this type, it's not that one event happens and people escape and you don't know where they are and the police has to go and find them. It's not like this, right? I mean, you know exactly what's going on. Everybody knows there is as much documentation as you need and more than you need. And these things continue to go on.
Yeah. תודה, בני.
What just from your own point of view, Benny, what is your sense of the impact this has on the daily emotional state of the people that you were there to help protect?
You know, in the specific place where I was in Farsia, in this Abu Mahsen families, I think it's pretty clear, at least to me, that if the volunteers were not there, they would not be able to survive there. Even with the presence of the volunteers, yeah, they live under constant threats. The kids, the families, the men, the shepherds, and they do it because they feel they have no other choice. They really feel they have no other choice. You know, they are attached to their land. Their grandfather or great-grandfather came there first, like as I said, 90 years ago, probably, to this area, and they want to stay there. But more, my feeling was that even more than this, they just don't see any prospects elsewhere. You know, what they know to do, they grow up living, and their livelihood is the sheep. If they have to go, they would have, in the best case scenario, they would sell the sheep, and they will manage to get something out of it. But then there is no source of income. Where are they going to go? They will have to go to Area A, to some place deep in the Palestinian territory, and they don't know what they are going to live from, where they are going to live. So it's an impossible state for them. They are being harassed, they suffer, but as long as they can stay there, they would stay there. And I talk about this family, but many other communities do yield under the pressure, and they live. And
where do they go to? They go to the cities and the so-called
they go to the town, to other bigger video. Yeah, right. I mean, deeper into the Palestinian area, but they will have to live on the street or with relatives, and without any apparent solution to this, and without any source of income.
Yeah. So, we have a question from Edward Ryerson.
Oh, yes. Let me unmute. And we have a couple more in the chat if there's time. Did that work? No?
Edward, can you? Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, I don't want to take up time. I already asked one question, but what do you have a sense of? Is there any awareness in the Israeli population at large of what is going on, and do they care, or is there? I mean, it's hard to make a generalization like that, I understand, but do people think, well, this is just what's happening? I mean, do they have any sympathy for these people?
I think that there are very few people who have real sympathy to the outpost people. There are, but I think it's a relative minority, small minority. But there is a spectrum of people that from here to look, I mean, if there was enough awareness, if people who cared about it, I think that this would not have happened. It could not have happened. As I said, it's totally surreal, totally unbelievable situation, and people generally, I don't know what to say. Whenever I talk to people about it, I'm trying to do my best. Actually, I want to say that donations are very welcome, as Paul mentioned. But I think the best service that you can do, if you know somebody in Israel, if you have friends, relatives, just mention this to them. Tell them what you should know about it. You should, if you don't want to understand, there is not everybody would like to go. I think it's possible, but okay, there is danger in going there. I understand, but at least do something to protest it. Do something to raise your voice somehow around it. And most of the protests in Israel that you probably heard a lot about, civil protests against the threats to democracy, etc., to stop the war, etc. But this, there is very little protest around this specific aspect about what's going on in the West Bank, and people should raise their voice on this.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Well, first of all, before we close tonight, Benny, I want you to tell people what that website is, where they can go if they do want to make contributions. But right now, are there Israelis who live in Israel right now who then go out and do this protection work?
Yes, this precisely was the group that I participated in.
Right.
And they
so, but you came
but
from
there are very
Amherst.
few. There are a few hundreds in total, I would say.
Yeah.
That do this.
So there are Israelis that do this who are living in Israel now. What is the attitude of the
let me just clarify.
toward people doing this?
Let me just clarify first that I was an exception there. Most of the people, 99% of the people there were Israeli who live in Israel. When I decided to go to do this activity, I preferred to join Israelis who live in Israel and do this rather than to join an international group because of my dual citizenship and my Israeli background, etc. So it was more natural for me to do this. But 99% of the people are not people who live in elsewhere, but are really Israelis who live in Israel. Now, what is the attitude of the rest of the population? It's a mix, right? I mean, I think some people think that there are bigger problems for Israelis to deal with than to go and help Palestinians. And many people would express this voice and would consider these activists of putting their energy and resources not in the most important place. But I think there are a good number of people who appreciate it. I wish there would be more. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if what's the general. If you ask me what's the percentage of Israeli population, Jews in Israel, who support this activist, I'm not sure if I would say that really support. I'm not sure if I would say more than 20 or 30%. But I don't know.
Do any of the people you work with,
do
they talk about being ostracized at all in Israeli society for doing this? Or no?
No.
I mean, it's quite a phenomenon to me that people would be living.
I can tell you that
Israeli society, and then on a weekend or for a couple of weeks come out, to do this work and then go back. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon. It's hard.
Yeah. That's precisely also one of the reasons why I wanted to join this group to feel a little bit this kind of people. But back to your previous question, I think I would fairly tell you that among my family, I have quite big family in Israel and friends. There are many friends with whom I will not talk about this activity. I would not talk about this activity.
Right.
I would just not mention it because I'm not sure how would they react. There are friends and family with whom I will talk about it and generally be supportive to various degrees. But there are many people with whom I would not dare to mention it if I want to keep some personal relationship.
Right. Must be quite an interesting situation to be in. We have a question. We have just a couple more minutes maybe, but Christine Solomon, would you like to ask your question? Okay, you can talk now, Christine.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello. So I was reading in the New York Times recently, Benny, about the group of Palestinians who paid, I think, $1,600 per person to surreptitiously be escorted out, allowed to leave Israel and put on a flight going, they did not know where, and they ended up stopping a couple places in Africa and I believe in South
Mhm.
Africa. Do you have any knowledge about that process or
No,
heard about
no,
that?
I understand. Just like you, I read about it in the news and then in the media, and I know apparently there was some kind of scam or some. I don't know. I really
Right.
don't know.
And I'm sorry, I missed the first couple of minutes. Where do you live now and where are
I live
what
in
nationality?
Amherst. I live in Amherst. I've
Oh,
been in
so
Amherst since 2007.
oh, okay. Okay, so you're a US citizen now, but originally are you
Yeah,
from the Holy Land
Israel.
somewhere?
I'm
Israel.
from
Okay.
Israel, and I'm still dual citizen, and I have lots of connection, and
Oh, right.
I still feel Israeli, and I feel that
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
need to do this.
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to let you know that Benny is a physics professor at the
Oh, okay.
University of Massachusetts in Amherst.
Oh,
So
okay. Wonderful.
he's straddling a number of different worlds.
Right.
I also want to put the website in the chat box so that people
That'd be
are
good,
very
Benny. If
welcome,
you
of
could
course,
put
to
that
donate.
website there. This is for the JVA group.
Correct. And then if you scroll down, you will see a donate button.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll give people just a minute to look for that. So you can maybe open it up or save that link somewhere. And maybe come back to it in
Yes,
another
I'm going
time.
to share. I'm happy to share. I just in the chat box. I'm happy to share my email address. Let me make sure I wrote it correctly. And yeah, if you have any questions or
Yeah.
you want,
So Benny is
I'm happy to give this presentation elsewhere to anybody who
Yes.
wants to hear it, and or yeah, I'm happy to get in.
Yeah, so
contact.
Benny has actually told us that he actually shows this presentation to many American Jews who strongly support Israel.
Oh, I said that I tried to.
Yeah.
So far, I managed to find some Jews, American Jews, but mostly people who are kind of more leftist. So far, I'm still working on this, and I want to get to groups of what you would call more pro-Israeli in the
Well,
way we
just
speak
keep in
today.
mind that he's open to showing it to people
Yeah.
from a wide variety of backgrounds in the hope of, supporting the issue of Palestinians and what they're going through, but also along the lines of reconciliation between different people with different attitudes toward the world right now, especially at this important time. So, Benny, it's amazing. Thank you for doing this work. Do you plan on going back?
I'm planning for, I hope to go in the end of the year, and if not later, but hopefully, yeah, I do plan to go back, yeah.
Not exactly the way a lot of us spend our holiday break, but that's
you feel you do something. I don't
thanks so
know.
much for doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so and thanks for being with us tonight, Ben.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Paul.
much.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.